What's going on, everyone? Talen here, and welcome to another uniform review video. Alright, so we have all of the new uniforms from this update to go over, and we're going to be starting off today in this video with Sharon Rogers' new uniform. So here we have her Dark Star armor, and yes, I have already purchased this uniform, and that's just because I wanted to check out the damage on it to make sure that it was indeed better than her old uniform, because as we know, Sharon Rogers can do pretty good damage. She has fallen off a little bit in terms of where she used to be, but her damage was still pretty high when you were able to get it to line up properly. And so, yeah, that's just what I wanted to confirm. So let's go ahead and take a look at the armor, or the uniform here, before we jump into the skill preview. So the uniform bonus is going to be decrease all damage received by 10% and increase chain hit damage by 10% when attacking. So overall, those are fine. Those are good uniform bonuses, and they're just flat, like always being applied. So it just says apply to self. It's not when triggering a skill. It's not on a cooldown or anything like that, so she's always going to have that chain hit damage increase no matter what skill she's using, which is really nice. And of course, decreasing all damage received is nice as well, especially since she's already a relatively tanky character with high defense and super armor. So yeah, she can already take a hit pretty well. So we're having 5 skill changes here. None of them except for the 5th skill have any text changes, or at least text changes that are different than her old uniform, because I believe all of this is the same here. 5 seconds of damage immunity, 10 seconds for your accumulation, and accumulation is still what was it, 250, 225%, whatever that was, 150%, 15%, 15% for each 1%. So yeah, all of that looks the same to me. 4th skill, no text changes. And then we come to the 5th skill here, which it does change around quite a bit. So we do have a 3-second stun being applied to the enemies now, and we have a crit rate boost on this skill, a 25% crit rate boost, which is really nice. So I do like that. It's going to help out our damage quite a bit if you get that buff going before you line up the damage proc on the 4th skill, if that's the skill you're going to try to line it up on. Yeah, so I do like that change, except you are losing the ability to pierce super armor, because you did have that, as we see over here on her 5th skill before. Oh, the stun is up by 1 second. Okay, so instead of a 2-second, it's now a 3-second. But as you can see here, 100% chance to penetrate super armor, which it's pretty much when that ball of energy was out, it could guard break the enemy if they didn't have like a guard break obelisk on, and they're just relying on super armor from the character, which can be useful in PvP situations, but for PvE situations, definitely the new crit rate buff is going to be preferred. And then uniform bonus on her old uniform here, the Starlight armor, is a ignored dodge by 20%, which I would have liked if they had kept that. I would prefer this 20% ignore dodge opposed to the damage received reduction by 10%, so I would prefer this with the chain hit probably, because ignored dodge is just really valuable. So I kind of don't like that they got rid of that, but it is what it is. So let's go back over here. So yeah, so we've looked at all of those, so now let's go ahead and jump into the skill preview here and see what the actual skill animation changes look like. Alright, so we do have all 5 skills being changed, so let's go ahead and just start right off with the first skill here. So the first skill, we now have definitely a lot more hits. I think the animation is a little bit quicker, because our old first skill was just had a really long duration before you could start like moving around, so that's okay. And I'm pretty sure you can cancel it, so let's look at this second skill. So second skill still has that instant iframe at the start of it. Oh, that is something that she lost from the first skill here, because her first skill before had kind of like the second skill, an instant iframe, but she like jumped to the side and then shot the enemy with her lance, or her big gun. So yeah, she is losing that instant iframe on the first skill, so that can be that can hurt her a little bit, because I know I used to rely on the instant iframes on the first and second. Like I do instant iframe, then cancel into this instant iframe, and then usually my third skill would come back off of cooldown by then to help kind of keep her more protected during my skill rotation, instead of having to kite around or anything like that, or run away from the enemy. So now the third skill, really long charge up there to get the actual damage out of the third skill. Which I could see why, because you're supposed to be sitting there taking damage, so you're accumulating your own damage buff by taking the hits, so that's probably why she just stands there. But pretty much the really similar to her old third skill, because the old third skill just kind of, she charged up and then shot one blast, but now she takes longer to charge up and hits them multiple times. So a few more hits on that, but you're going to be canceling that skill anyway, so it's not really too important about the damage on this skill itself. So now let's move on to the fourth skill, her kind of bread and butter skill. So let's see here. So now we have kind of a charge in right there, and then her classic kind of jump up in the air and shoot them with the beam of energy kind of thing. So yeah, so a lot more hits than her old fourth skill, because as you can see here, the running and the charging with the spinning her kind of lance right there is going to be doing a lot more damage. And then we still have the same beam right there, which from what I've heard, they haven't fixed the issue with her fourth skill, because if you played Sharon Rogers a lot before with her old uniform and even without the uniform, you know that this fourth, well, not without the uniform, because without the uniform she didn't have the beam, it was just that jump up in the air kind of thing. But you know that the beam is got horrible targeting and is prone to miss the enemies quite easily, so it's really frustrating in World Boss Ultimate. You go boom, you line up your damage proc, she jumps up in the air, and then she shoots the beam, and you see nothing, no damage at all. And it's usually because either the beam like went over their head, or they kind of like walked towards you a little bit so that it missed, or they just moved a little bit, because the targeting is just not very good. And from what I've heard, they haven't fixed that, but and in the testing that I have done just a little bit before recording this video, it does seem that way. Like I have had it miss, but I haven't had any misses where I have not received any damage at all, but I have had it kind of whiff where only like half of the skill hits them, so I don't get all of the damage kind of thing. So there's definitely still an issue with her fourth skill, but overall the fourth skill, when it hits, is doing more damage than her previous uniform. So we are getting a damage buff either way. It's still kind of dodgy on getting it to actually land on the enemy consistently, so I really wish they would fix the targeting on her fourth skill. But anyway, let's move on to the fifth skill here. So now the fifth skill, she kind of does a charge, and then boom, she shoots like a giant like beam of energy with her lance that kind of lingers and just goes across the screen really slow. So I do like this skill, except for the fact that, of course, it is just in one kind of direction like that. So you got to make sure that, like, you know, when fighting World Boss Ultimate, that they are kind of rooted in place, or they're doing a skill where they're not going to be moving around too much, because that can definitely mess up the skill in terms of damage. But her fifth skill now with this uniform is a candidate for your damage proc, because it does do a lot of damage with the damage proc, because I did jump into just Corvus real fast just to see, and yeah, her fifth skill with the damage proc is doing some pretty nice damage. So it is a very good alternative to the fourth skill, which I do like. So, you know, if you're having issues getting your fourth skill to land, or, you know, actually hit the enemy properly, you know, if like you're missing or whiffing a lot with the fourth skill, then you can kind of move over to the fifth skill as your main source of damage if you just, you know, don't want to mess with the timing or have to line up and make sure that you're a certain distance from the enemy so that the skill will land. That kind of thing. But again, I haven't done a lot of gameplay with this uniform, so I can't tell you if targeting is better. It seems to me that it's still about the same. But let me know in the comments below if you're having better results with the fourth skill landing more consistently than with her previous uniform. So I'm curious to see if you guys are having that same issue as me. But like I said, the fifth skill now, a good candidate for a damage proc. The only issue with the fifth skill now is since, as you can see here, boom, you have all of those hits before she shoots that lance out. It can steal the damage proc if you're trying to line it up on the fourth skill, because all those hits right there are prime candidates for triggering your damage proc. But that's only if you want to get the lance damage right there. So if you just want the buff for the crit rate, then you can just do pop this, and then just go right into the fourth skill. But then you don't get, of course, the damage from the fifth skill, because the way I prefer to use her is go like this, then boom, as soon as we get that lance out, use the fourth skill, and hopefully have the damage proc line up right there when I'm using the fourth skill. But like I said, it's a little harder to do just because you have all of those hits in the beginning right here before you get that lined up. So I'm almost thinking you have to do something like start with your damage proc on the fourth skill for like opening up, or, you know, 3 into 4, and then kind of boom, boom, you got your damage proc there. You see that the skill cooldown is getting close to when your Obelisk is going to refresh. Then you pop the 5th skill, do that, and then kind of pop in like that kind of thing. So, you know, just do one rotation where you don't use the 5th skill and then start including it in the later rotations, and maybe it'll work out better so you can get the damage from the 5th skill and the 4th skill. So yeah, overall I do like this uniform. It is a really nice damage boost for her, which yeah, she already had high damage, so definitely with this uniform here, she's going to be melting pretty much any game mode. So yeah, I'm happy, or I'm excited to see what she's going to be doing even at tier 3 for like World Boss Ultimate, if I'm going to be able to push even higher on the stages. But with this uniform here, just from, like I said, the little bit of testing that I've done, she's a lot more consistent in clearing or getting her damage off in World Boss Ultimate. And I don't know if it's just because the damage is better, but it seems like the survivability is even a little bit better as well. But yeah, that's just going to be my thoughts on uniform here. So yeah, I definitely think it is better than our old uniform. So if you don't have that one, then definitely pick up this one over that one. If you have our old uniform, I mean, it's up to you. If you're going to get her to tier 3, definitely I would recommend getting this uniform. If you don't use Sharon Rogers very much, then you could probably skip on this. But the uniform is really nice, and I do think it makes a noticeable difference from our old uniform that would warrant buying this one as well. So with that being said, we're going to end off with letting the 6th skill, or the tier 3 skill, play out the end of the video here. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video and my thoughts on Sharon Rogers here and her new Dark Star uniform. And take it away, Sharon.